Distinguished guests, participants, welcome back to the International Forum for Trilateral Cooperation 2024. We will now begin Session 2, Digital Nexus, in search of solution for descending mutual perception in trilateral cooperation. In the era of digital transition, China, Japan, and Korea have benefited from new digital technologies, especially in facilitating communication among people. However, we are still facing challenges of descending mutual perceptions in areas like social media, where large amounts of negative information are increasing. Therefore, this session will examine the pros and cons of digital transition and discuss how social media can reshape mutual perception in a positive aspect. Same as Session 1, online guests may also submit questions to the speakers through the chat Q&A function. Now, I would like to invite Ms. Sun Jie, Ambassador for Cultural Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs at the Republic of Korea, as the moderator of Session 2. Ms. Sun, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank the International Forum for Trilateral Cooperation and congratulate them on the 25th anniversary of the trilateral cooperation. I think as many people have said before lunch, the trilateral cooperation has had its ups and downs, and hopefully someone was asking during lunch where I thought it was going. I think it's going up. We are hopefully heading towards a more positive area. And I think that is very crucial, not just for the, of course, for the established generation, but I think it is a very crucial direction that we need to make sure that the three countries are headed for a younger generation. And I hope that's where we are able to focus this afternoon after lunch. And I see so many young people in the audience, which I think is a wonderful, a very positive sign. And hopefully we'll be able to talk about the issues that the younger generation who is living in this era of digitalization have, and the crucial role they have in fostering a better relationship between the three countries. Now, I'm very pleased to have three excellent panel members, as well as our guests from the international organization, to really look at this area, and I will introduce them one by one as they prepare their remarks. But first, I would like to turn over the floor to Ms. Che Eun-mi, Dr. Che Eun-mi, sorry about that. Dr. Che Eun-mi, who's a research fellow at the ASEAN Institute of Policy Studies. She's well known to this group, I think, but I think we'll invite Dr. Che onto the podium. Dr. Che? And a good round of applause. It helps digest lunch.
네, 한국어로 하겠습니다. 네.
So I would like to speak in Korean. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I study Korea-Japan relations at the ASEAN Institute for Policy Studies. My name is Choi Eun-mi. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me to this very meaningful forum. I've been to multiple conferences, but I don't think I had the opportunity to participate in such a diverse panel. This is going to be an interesting discussion, so I look forward to what is about to come. And I do think that there are many students here in the audience as well. Because I work at a policy institute, I work on policy recommendations, but I also teach at a university. Maybe hopefully one day some of my students will graduate in the future and go to work and maybe be a member of the audience. In fact, there are, I think, some of my students who are here watching us, so I am very much looking forward to this session, which is titled Digital Nexus, and the key word being mutual perception. With this keyword, I tried to think of the best presentation that I could give. And I wanted to talk about how, because we're living in the digital era, we have so much convenience, so much information, so much efficiency all around us. But really, how are we digesting this information? This is the question that I wanted to ask, and I would like to launch into my PowerPoint presentation to go into more detail. I think I can provide some more detailed case studies later on, but my key points are as follows here. I want to touch upon the acceleration of digital transformation and how our lives have changed here and how other countries perceive us in this digital era and what we can do to try to build mutual perception, especially using digital technology in this new world. And for this, I turn to the expression digital literacy. I'm sure that many of you might not have heard about the word digital literacy, but it is an expression that brings together digital and literacy. There is a translation of this word into the Korean. It is also often referred to as media literacy, but I do want to touch upon digital literacy as a key word on how we can understand each other better, specifically on how we can improve digital literacy going forward. For the first part of my talk, I want to discuss how digital transformation is accelerating. I know there's much talk about this concept, so I don't think that I need to go into detail here. You have laptops in front of you, you have smartphones, and through those devices, you have access to a lot of information. And we are now living in that era. I don't think anyone here would disagree with that. I'm usually the youngest person in these panel discussions, but I think there is somebody here who is younger than I am, and I am very happy about that. When I was in high school, back in my day, so to speak, there was only one kid in my class who had a cell phone, and that cell phone is not something that you can hold with one hand. It was like a brick. And this kid, he really was the symbol of wealth and status. Oh my gosh, he had a cell phone. He was the only one who had it, but because he was the only one who had it, he didn't have anyone to call. But nowadays, everyone has a phone. We can all engage with one another on social media, or in the case of Korea, Kakao Talk, or in the case of Japan, Line Messenger. However, back in my day, when I was in high school, we didn't have phones. Now we all do. Even the youngest kids have their own phones. Because of this diffusion of digital technology, what we're seeing is that we have access to so much information, but this also comes at a cost. This is not something that is well known or well appreciated. First of all, whether you have or have not these devices is leading to a sort of wealth gap. I told you earlier about this one kid in high school when I was in high school who had a phone. So there was only that one kid, and he was the symbol of wealth. And in the past, in one class, there were maybe about 40 kids in one classroom. So it was a big class. He was the symbol of wealth, as I mentioned before. But those people who have devices and those people who don't have devices, there is a growing gap between those two. But now what we're seeing is that most people in fact, have these digital devices, but on how they use the devices, there is a big gap. My younger sibling, I think, is similar to your age. I would have to say the sibling is of the MZ generation. And she tells me that, listen, the iPhone is not something that you just use to make calls and text people. You can use the iPhone to do so many other things. You can use it to measure length. You can do various other things. So depending on how you make use of your phone, you can really come up with many different multiple uses and functions on how you can access information. There's also this information asymmetry, because for some people, Maybe they are well familiar with AI, or we're going to hear about this in the future, but we can hear more about these different influences. They can access so much information, but then there are so many people who don't have that kind of access, which means that there is this information asymmetry. And there's also a difference in the kind of information we get. Is there accurate information versus inaccurate information that we get? This also leads to the issue of trust. Soon I'm going to come up with several examples to illustrate my points, but there is what we call peer group, the group of your own peers. And there is this issue of a herd mentality or a sort of conformity with the peer groups. And I would like to talk about this from the point of view of accuracy. Now, how does this impact us in our relationships and our connections with others? Here in this own room, there are people from Korea, from China, from Japan. Sometimes I ask my students, there's Korea, there's Japan. How do Koreans think of Japan? What do the Japanese people think of Koreans? Let's figure that out. Let's find out. And let's say I'm living here in Korea, but let's say I am a Chinese national. How do I think Korean people perceive of me? So we try to do a study on that, and the responses were quite shocking. Or maybe if I put it in a positive light, they were not deniable. So I think I did talk about this in another forum. This one Japanese student came up to me and said, I think that Koreans really don't like Japan. And Chinese students have come up to me and said, I think that Koreans have a lot of misunderstanding about China. Now, these are Chinese and Japanese students living in Korea who had that kind of perception. There were some of these that I thought were maybe not accurate, but some maybe were. But what I thought was unfortunate is that these are kids who are living in Korea. So they came here. They're very much interested in Korea, which is why they came here to live and study. But the perception of Korean people towards them was not entirely positive. And I think that Koreans are somewhat to blame for that. This would also be similar if you were to ask any foreigners living in China or in Japan. But then, digital technology is yet another aspect that impacts this. Through social media, we get access to a lot of information. And I think that when we access information, there is this element of peer group conformity. And this is what happens when, let's say, all the peers around me seem to hate Japan. Then it would be very hard for me to step up and say, no, I like Japan. Similarly, if everybody seems to not like China, it's very hard to say, no, but I like China. And I think we're seeing something similar play out in social media. For example, in 2019, there was a huge anti-Japan protest in Japan. And in fact, even those people who traveled to Japan did not tell anyone about it. People did not shop at Uniqlo. They were scared that people would take photographs of them in Uniqlo. So instead, people would shop online from Uniqlo. So what this tells us is that people are conscious of what their behavior would look like to other people and how others would perceive them, and that in fact shapes our perception. And if they feel that socially it is not acceptable to like Japan, or right now it is very acceptable that it's okay to like Japan, then they would follow the crowd, that herd mentality. This is a situation that we have to really delve very closely into, and that is why I came up and I thought that we could discuss digital literacy in this talk. So we need to really be very accurate and try to be rational in our thinking and our understanding. I think I'm running out of time. I don't think I did the best time management here, but there is other issues about Line and Yahoo. Perhaps maybe this is something I can discuss later during the Q&A. But in any case, when we talk about digital literacy, this is not an important concept to know, but this is basically the ability to criticize what is right and what is wrong. So instead of just blindly accepting what you see, you're being critical and critiquing between what is right and what is wrong. And particularly, let's say in Korea, the way that we perceive China or the way Koreans perceive Japan or vice versa, I think this would be relevant. Now, that is what I wanted to discuss in this very short talk, which is that in this flood of information that is out there, instead of just blindly accepting what we see and what we read, we have to be able to differentiate what is right and wrong, what is accurate and what is not, and be critical of that. And I would like to follow up in the Q&A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Che. I mean, of course, we can wait for the Q&A, but I thought I'd just follow up and ask you. All this kind of the importance of digital literacy. Actually, it has to be felt through what actually happens. Let's take the example of the line controversy. How does this kind of perceptions, different perceptions from different countries, Korea and Japan in particular in this instance, how did it impact this incident?
네, 라인 선생님 우리 대사님께서 영어로 해주셔서 저도
내가
영어로 해야
왜냐면
될까요?
I'm gonna just totally speak in English because that will be the same for all of my guests. But you are totally welcome to answer back in Korean. I will understand.
Thank you. 한국.
All right, in that case, I'm going to proceed in Korean. So that line, Yahoo incident was a big incident here in Korea from about end of April to about the middle of May. And what I felt at the time, in the course of my conversations with Japanese people, I felt that there was a slight change in nuance and a slight difference in tone because this issue became very hot in Japan after May. So I thought, why aren't these people more knowledgeable about this issue? Why aren't they as angry? Many people might know, many people might not. So basically, Naver created this social media service called Line, and there was a privacy breach. Line is especially popular in Japan. And because of that, the Japanese government issued an administrative guidance on this, and in that they mentioned the capital structure of the company. In Korea, this meant that Naver, because it is the service operator of Line, it seemed to feel as if Japan was asking them to sell their equity stake in Line. Of course, that is not what the Japanese government intended, but that was what the Korean people understood. So there was this sort of idea that because this Line service of an internationally recognized company that was strong for about 13 years, and now Japan is trying to steal this service. Maybe not steal. Steal is a very strong word. Maybe not steal, but take this service that was really grown here in Korea and developed here in Korea. Why did this controversy occur in the first place? I personally think that because Naver is the party here at stake, they're a company. It is really up to them to answer for this. Naver did not actually say anything about this controversy at all, but the Korean people looked at this and said, this is something we need to protect. The Korean government needs to protect the service and we need to protect Naver. And they rallied around Naver. My curiosity is what really is at the heart of this, because some of the expressions that were tossed around is that we need to protect Naver and Japan is trying to steal this. Japan is trying to take this away from us. Back in 2019, there was anti-Korean exports, anti-exports, and export restrictions against Korea by Japan. So at the time, some of the Koreans were saying that, okay, although I could not be one of the independence fighters back then, I'm going to resist Japan now. So there was this widespread anti-Japanese sentiment. Even before the actual party at stake could issue a statement or say anything, the public would try to create this kind of atmosphere and this mood. So it became very difficult for people who did not agree with them to voice their opinion. And this was because although we may be critical of information and we may be objective, it could still be very difficult to make your voice heard. So we have to think about this kind of situation.
Follow up, but that I'll do in the Q&A about why this instance ended in a different way than what happened in the past. But one of the things that influences all this are the influencers. And this is what we are going to be hearing this time from Mr. Yamashita Tomohiro, the Chief Contents Officer of Nulu Nulu Incorporated. Now, Mr. Yamashita is he will be talking in Japanese. He's obviously Japanese, but he operates in China. And he has over 6 million followers. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Yamashita about how he views the world of digital.
여러분 안녕하십니까? 제 이름
Good afternoon. I am Yamashita Tomohiro.
중국말을 할 수 있어.
I can speak Chinese, but just very little Korean. But today I will be presenting in Japanese. I hope that was well understood. Thank you. So I will now begin to speak in Japanese. So the topic of my presentation is mutual understanding among Korea, China, and Japan. And because we are seeing decline in the mutual perception, I'd like to talk about the ways to address that and whether indeed there is a descending mutual perception. Going straight away to my conclusion, I'd like to begin with the role that the adults, the older generation should be playing. We should, first of all, make places, and we should commend the younger generation and support them. So now let me explain what each role specifies. So on this important topic, honestly, I don't think we should be very pessimistic. Of course, it's my personal view, but again, let me begin with this basic question. Who are you? So very briefly, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Tomohiro Yamashita, and I have a lot of followers on social media in Japan, with celebrities in Japan and on television programs or broadcasting programs. I assist with Japanese contents moving into the Chinese market. So I'm introducing myself to you because I have this conviction that the CJK contents industry, the trilateral contents industry, can present us with important clues to solve this current situation we are in right now. So you will see on the screen the IP characters and games, as well as the dramas and contents that are being produced in the three countries. And what do you think the younger generation is thinking as they look at these contents from the three countries? I think there is a great attractiveness that contents can present because it allows the peoples of the three countries to really enjoy each other's culture and also engage in interaction of the mind and the heart. So today, using your smartphones, you are able to do quote palm travel, so travel within your hands, and you can travel to all different countries. And of course, this cross-border this content can present us with a very positive side effect. And what do I mean by side effect? These influencers who create these contents, they do not talk about political issues. And naturally, this leads to their fans to also not talk about political issues. So for the contents industry or the contents world, politicization is a whole different story. It doesn't exist. So for the fans and for the influencers, how are we going to ensure that that good contents are created and this is shared well. I mean, that is most important for them. I'm sure you all have spouses, people that you love. And when you love someone, you want to make them happy, right? So you always think about ways of making the other person more happy. And so I think that is the kind of power that we should be utilizing in our trilateral relationship as well. And of course, the power of the media and the big media companies, I think their influence, their power is declining. I am working as an influencer, and so what is the power of the influencer that we can use in international relations? Let's think about that for a moment. So the influence of the influencers, they have the ability to provide information to the fans who are very close to these influencers. And this kind of sharing of information, of sharing of contents, naturally leads to very positive sentiments being developed by the fans of the influencer. So this is the kind of power that the influence can exercise. But of course, we cannot use this at our whim. The influence or the power of the influencers is a capital, a form of capital in the modern world. And to be able to use this capital, the older generations and the international organizations should be providing something to the influencers in return. And if you're not willing to present something to the influencers to understand, if you don't try to understand what influencers want, you won't be able to utilize the power that they have. So what do the influencers want? They want to get specialty and titles because they want to be differentiated from others, because that directly leads to more power that the influencers can exercise. And so what they want is more views through very specific and unique contents or themes that they can create. So if we can provide this need of the influencers, then we can have exchange of capital, and this will lead to positive synergy. And so what I would like to propose is the scheme called Influencers Bank. So the influencers working in our 3 countries, we could do an open call, online open call to them, and to invite the influencers to participate in this bank scheme. And they can come together to engage in exchanges. And so the fans will see that the influencers that they are a fan of, they are interacting with influencers from other countries, and that is going to have great ripple effect, positive ripple effect across not just the influencers themselves, but across the entire fandom. And so we could give recognition and also acknowledge the achievements of the influencers. Influencers are really hungry for recognition from other people. So the international organizations, the governments, the fact that they would be willing to provide this acknowledgement to the influencers is going to be a great motivation for the influencers to participate in these kinds of programs. And last year, TCS had hosted this forum also, and I had given this presentation. And in late April of this year, and this was an event that was held in Sachon in China. Many influencers were invited to have a joint study, have an interaction and exchange session. So this has led to the demise of a lot of the walls that had previously existed among the influencers of the 3 countries. And this had very positive results, and I think this is an important first step towards strengthening trilateral cooperation. So once again, I'd like to remind you of the role that the older generation should be playing. It would be important for them to provide places to the younger generation to meet each other and to also commend and acknowledge the influence that they have. But of course, you shouldn't be trying to control how the interaction works. And we still have that sentiment that if you have an excessively positive attitude towards other countries, that you can be considered as a traitor. And so I think we need to, of course, tread a fine line, but continue to try to acknowledge these efforts and also continue to support the work. So what we can do is, of course, play this role well and then ensure that the TCS also and other international organizations will participate in strengthening the brand power of these influencers, the younger generations, and that is going to lead to higher participation rates, and this is going to lead to higher satisfaction rate for the participating influencers. Previously, we usually utilized the media to relay information, but their role, their share in the entire market is decreasing. And so we now have to look to the use of the influencers and the younger generation because they also can play an important role of being a medium of information and data flow. So I think this is going to lead to new changes and new trends in the future. And it's not just for the influencers, but in May and or in summer and autumn of this year, we're going to have a Sapporo and Hokkaido event called No Maps 2024. And so these two cities have been designated as financial special zones in Japan. And there's going to be a participation from a lot of investors coming from China. There will be presentations given from different countries. And there's going to be global business sessions held at this event as well. And I am also an organizer of this event. And I have been doing a lot of content creation work today. And we really look forward to a lot of participation from this audience to these upcoming events that we are hosting. And I'm honestly almost 40, so I can't say that I'm part of the youngest generation. But anyhow, the young generation, the next generation, they will be leading the trilateral cooperation in the future. And so we have to invest in them. A lot of support, a lot of acknowledgement and recognition should be given to the next generations, which will lead to a brighter future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yamashita. It's great to hear that you say you're almost 40, so you're too old. So I'm glad to hear that you are of my generation now. I think we learned a lot about influencers and about what you think should be done in terms of supporting good influencers. But I'm also wondering, the concern about the older generation and the reason that we talk about controls is about the negative influencers, about people who are spreading negative or disinformation. From your perspective, how do we view them? What should be done to turn negative into a positive perspective?
日本人が、国際結婚する相手のランキングというのがありまして。
So Japanese people or Japanese men often marry with Chinese women, and Japanese men, or let me backtrack. So Japanese men marry, when they have international marriages, most of the time they marry Chinese women. And for the Japanese women, most of them marry Korean men. So I think think in a marriage, I mean, nationality is much less important because this is a personal relationship that we're talking about. So you can say that it's similar for influencers as well. When the influencers come together, spend a lot of time together, they develop affection for each other, and they will be more than willing to share positive information with their fan. It's very simple logic.
Taking that to mean that we should look at people and not at just nationalities. So I think that's a positive spin. But one of the reasons that all of the digital area is important and so crucial for the next generation is that it also influences technology area, which is a big aspect of all three of our countries, and especially in the era where we are in the process of putting together regulations and rules for AI, it becomes even more crucial. To talk about this aspect of the digital nexus, we have Dr. Wang Zhu-Wian, the president of Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence. Dr. Wang, would you like to join us and tell us what is going on in the area of AI?
Thank you very much for that introduction, moderator. Distinguished guests, it is a pleasure to meet you all. My name is Wang Zhu-Wian. I'm a director of AI at the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence. Today, I wanted to talk about the impact of AI developments on the cultures of the CJK countries. That is why I chose this topic, to delve into AI and its impact on us all. China is also going through a digital transformation era. 5G internet technology is being provided to our people at large. China is reaping the benefits of these digital technologies. Through e-commerce, maybe they can place an order in the morning and receive the shipment in the afternoon. And they can get their food delivered within 30 minutes using a food delivery app. So, this digital technology really brought about a lot of developments and growth for our society. We've seen this growth in the form of AI. Now, we're moving from the era of digital transformation to AI transformation. If we look at these different platforms like TikTok and etc., they are fundamentally reshaping our lives. These make use of AI-based recommendation service. These algorithms that look at user preferences and our likes and dislikes and providing accurate recommendations of the different products that the users would like. In the past, they just looked at the number of users and maybe the situation that they are in, but the AI is becoming more detailed. Over the past year, AI technology has become even more developed, specifically with the rise of large language models, LLMs. With LLMs, this is rapidly changing our lives and also changing the history of AI developments in the society and history and the economy. Last month, OpenAI's ChatGPT 5 was launched as a service. These AI technologies can also, I think, support the exchanges among the CJK countries. AI is also helping us in safeguarding cultural heritage. DeepMind is using these LLMs to also try to decipher damaged ancient texts. So, for example, they're looking at ancient Greek texts to decipher these texts into the modern language. With these AI developments, we're seeing this move to preserve and even reconstruct and regenerate almost these ancient artifacts that we thought were long lost. And with these immersive experiences, users can also experience ancient history, ancient culture, and ancient arts. And I think that the CJK countries can engage in these digital technologies to further and facilitate their cultural exchange. This rise of generative AI is bringing about fundamental changes in culture and the arts. As you know, users can now just prompt AI art with one sentence, and with that, they can get the kind of artwork or collage that they want or an illustration that they want. In fact, you can access many of these different kinds of artworks. OpenAI has announced the development of Solar, and in China, next month, new technologies are going to be launched that's text-based, but will give rise to creative, these artistic formats. Images will be continued to be created based off of these text prompts, and these will also bring about new change in exchange in culture and the arts. And also in education, we're seeing many changes brought about by AI. There are AI technology-based online learning platforms, for example. These many different learning resources available, which can be used by people living in marginalized areas, maybe in the rural regions where they do not have access to some of these infrastructure. Students can still continue to make use of these platforms to enhance their learning outcomes and their learning educational feedback. This is also a way for AI to support this, and it will create new kinds of education and learning. For the CJK countries as well, they can cooperate using AI in various fields related to education. But the rise of AI is not 100% positive. There are obviously some downsides, and I would like to point out two in particular. The first is that there is this globalization of social media platforms. And through this, when the users access information, they continue to see and read what they want, even though what they read might not actually be truthful and accurate. This means that the people of the CJK countries could potentially go down a rabbit hole of misunderstanding. And with in-depth AI, there is fake information or falsified images. These are also some of the downsides of AI. But there might be some people who access these wrong misrepresentations and think that they are real and they are accurate, and come off and walk away with the wrong perception. This could lead to prejudice and more bias. So we have to work to decrease this prejudice and bias and try to solve these problems and challenges that may arise among the three countries. There are many things that we have to do in terms of policy and technology. Through AI technology, we can analyze the accuracy of the data that is open and available. And we have to be very prudent in differentiating the inaccurate information from the accurate information to minimize prejudice and bias, and try to also minimize misunderstandings that can arise out of wrong information. This is something that warrants a common response from our three countries. We are three countries that are very close in proximity to one another. We are neighbors, and in terms of AI development, I think that our three countries all have an important responsibility. We should work together to try to ensure that AI technology can lead to social development, decrease misunderstandings, and increase our sense of unity and also familiarity with one another, and facilitates more cultural exchange. Other than technology and policy, I think that more people can continue to use digital technologies in an effective way, and when they do so, I think that that could lead to a very robust foundation for a stronger cooperation among the three countries in the field of science and technology, particularly in AI. I hope that we can have a trilateral scientific cooperation mechanism kind of platform for scientific cooperation, so that within the platform we can discuss ways and further research in science and technology and culture and the arts. Our science and technology talents hopefully can engage in a more exchange for the future. When young people engage in joint research, I think that their friendship will blossom. So this is a way for us to lay the foundation, a robust foundation for future cooperation through our youth, which we have not seen for many decades. And the youth is very important on that. In 2018, we established an AI institute in China, and next June, we're also going to host an AI competition. And experts from about 30 different countries will come, about 1,200 scientists, engineers, CEOs, technology experts, the CEO of Turing, the CEO of OpenAI, they will come. They have, in fact, many of them participated in these AI competitions, and through this platform, we are exchanging with many of them, which is why I also hope that we can have more science and technology exchange among the CJK countries, particularly that this is a platform that is well suited to the youth. Through this platform, I hope that we can substantially raise our contribution. Thank you.
Point out a very important aspect of the collaboration between the three countries, especially in the young generation, in the area of AI. Can you introduce us to maybe an example of where this kind of collaboration is working to further AI?
好，谢谢主持人我去年年底的时候，我其实正好去了
I believe it was towards the end of last year when I had the opportunity to visit Hokkaido in Japan. And because I do not speak Japanese very well, I think I resorted to speaking a little bit of English and also using hand gestures. And of course, when I travel, I try to really use English a lot. I mean, I have no other recourse. But with the rise of AI technology, there was a big change, which is these translation models. I think that in the future, with AI translation devices, perhaps we can have real-time interpretation across our three CJK countries, and with real-time interpretation possible through these devices, that could lead to more facilitation of person-to-person exchange instead of just looking at the view and enjoying the food.
Relationship between people is going to be possible. I already see many people, young people, especially when they go travel to Japan or China, using their smartphones and these translation apps. So I think it's a very positive step. Now, finally, we'll have a discussant, and we'll have a sort of an outside the trilateral viewpoint to help us in our discussion to understand the importance of the digital nexus. We have Dr. Ganbold Bajanjov, who is the head of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific. We know it as UNESCAP and Northeast Asia Office. Dr. Bajanjov, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Ambassador Son, and thank you for the kind introduction, and also thank all our panel members for the interesting points raised. Through a few slides, I will take you through some general perspectives from the UN and UNESCAP's point of view on digital transformation relevant to East Asia, in China, Japan, Korea in particular, because we share a lot of alignments on our priorities. Digital transformation, of course, is very essential in the UN as a whole and in UNESCAP, because to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and the impact across the societies and economies, the speed is incredibly fast. So basically, this is overload of information. Which makes the quality information most important, and also increasingly there's the misinformation getting much more easier, whether it's intentional or not, through media outlets, whether it's traditional or social, and influencers and chatbot AI systems. So globally, we see a large increase in the use of digital mediums, not only for information access, but also for entertainment. This, however, varies by country, not only in the applications utilized, but also time spent on various activities. In East Asia, just briefly, what really matters is the different age groups approach the use of such digital mediums matters most compared to other regions. So it's an accelerating trend of aging societies, which we in ESCAP take it very seriously, and we closely collaborate with TCS at the moment, so developing a joint program activities. This in East Asia, so we need to design products and services addressing the needs from this our segment of our societies. So in terms of traditional media and social media dynamics, the problem of improving mutual perceptions in the digital age depends on which target groups in media formats are planned to be used. Narrative control in traditional media tends to become less effective with proliferation of online spaces that are curated by search algorithms, creating echo chambers of thought amongst cluster of people. Despite the many improvements made by technology, the technology remains a tool to obtain information and can only augment human communication. So as a highlight from my personal experience as a career diplomat, the communication, building trust, and compromises are key towards coexistence, if not building harmonious relationship. Speaking a common language and learning of local customs also help individuals obtain a greater understanding of thought processes and cultural norms, which are important even in a digital age. To build trust and facilitate ease of movement between countries, common interoperable frameworks can also serve as the foundation basis for building greater interlinkages in people, trade, cultural exchanges, and understanding. In-person exchanges through cross-border exchanges, therefore, a useful modality of augment digital exposure by providing access to other cultures, ways of thinking, norms, and help individuals call into question their own biases and rooted perspectives. Such exchanges can also function in the areas of research, trade, and commerce, and even transport, and even the health sectors. Because during the COVID, so it became very evident, so really countries needed common shared digital platforms with information on for their cross-border travels. Like, of course, the health certificates, or so, and then the travel history. So the CJK, for example, really, they were first respondents to the COVID. So really needed this type of shared platforms through the digital information sharing. In UN, in June 2020, UN adopted the UN Global Digital Cooperation Roadmap. and it covers 8 pillars, and East Asia, our sub-region, is well advanced in certain pillars, and we are still lack in many areas. So we have made good progress in such pillars such as connectivity, public goods, and security. But more can still be done collaboratively, such as the digital security, while also improving mutual perceptions as per the theme of this our dialogue now. And the key focus areas are on collaboration in common architectures. For example, joint work on artificial intelligence, combating disinformation, and creating safe online networks for all, ensuring access to accurate information, and also combats digital crime. Building upon the UN Global Digital Cooperation Roadmap, so my organization, UNESCO, has several key declarations adopted at its 80th session last April, where member states have committed to address some of the issues we are just now discussing, promoting dialogue, closing digital inequalities and human capability gaps, as well as scalable frameworks and solutions could be some examples. So to that end, there are many areas we can start close collaboration within the sub-region of East Asia and beyond. Especially, I would like to emphasize the role and the potential of the cities and local communities in addressing the issues like disaster risk reduction, early warning, especially during this area of climatic crises. These can be tackled on a broader sub-regional level, not only among China, Japan, Korea together, but also with neighboring countries such as Mongolia. So the focus on key sustainable development goals can be a framework to which bilateral and multilateral ties can be built upon all groups and levels in society to improve mutual perceptions. So lastly, the cities and local communities can actively participate in the process of improving mutual perceptions through use of twinning programs and augment multilateral frameworks through direct economic and information linkages in the region. So we also work very closely on that front with the TCS. So we developed a very strong platform and programs addressing the city-led cooperation, combating air pollution, specifically addressing this area of achieving the carbon neutrality, for example. These can serve as a test beds for the scaling up of a common digital infrastructure and frameworks, as lessons learned from the cities, local communities could scaled up to national or subnational levels and beyond. So I'll stop here, so we're happy to respond any questions and comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you've really given us a good overview of what is at stake. Now, but as you heard the discussion so far in terms of all these efforts in trying to improve cooperation, especially in the digital area within 3 countries, how does that impact the overall, your activities beyond just the 3 countries in terms of the Asia Pacific or even beyond?
So this, for example, the digital transformation itself is a very powerful tool to connect people. They now, especially the young generation, so younger generations, they are the future. So, and they better connected through the digital mediums, and they are less affected by these negative perceptions. So this would really move forward on overall the improvement of perceptions among countries, and that would help easier for them to connect, and also even this day travel become more comfortable, easier. So the young people, so they need less comfort. So and then they could plan their logistics, and so then the travel through thanks to this digital transformation make their lives much more easy to improve the understanding toward each other. So that I think that will help help this overall this whole society will benefit.
I think I totally agree, especially as you talked about in terms of the travel, helped by AI, the language apps that we talked about, and then information they get from other influencers as well. So there's a lot of opportunities for connection between a lot of young generations. I think we have actually talked quite a lot on the floor without your participation. So I think it's time to maybe open the floor so that if you have a question, there's also, hold on. There's also opportunities to ask questions online, but I think offline we can do a little bit of a question and Q&A session if you like. If you could raise your hand and a mic will be handed to you. Please identify yourself and if possible, ask one question at a time.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 일본인 이마다라고 합니다.
Hello. My question is for Dr. Che Eun-mi.
디지털
You talked about digital literacy for the youth. So these days, on social media, I think that because the youth use social media so much, that their widespread use. So I am 21 years old, so right between being an adult and being a teenager, but I think that maybe teachers and adults, so there are professors, however, they could also play a role in facilitating digital literacy for the youth. So what is the role that adults and grown-ups can play?
Please. Oh, and please, if any other speakers would like to help out in the answer, you're more than free to do so. But I think this one is specifically for you, Dr. Che.
네, 질문 감사합니다. 방금
Thank you very much for that. I think that the Japanese students spoke so proficient Korean. Thank you very much for that. I think that was an important question that you posed. I did not have enough chance to speak at length about the later parts of my presentation, but it's really about the role that the youth have to play, but also what the adults have to do. In Korea-Japan relations research, sometimes I talk about this. Children don't try to learn, and the adults don't try to teach. So this is something that I often say, especially when I talk about that sensitive challenges between Korea and Japan. And the same is true for digital literacy. The youth, the teenagers, they access so much information, but it's difficult for the youth to understand which is right and which is not. I don't think that their level of capacity is quite there yet. So when they access information, they have that mistaken idea that all information is accurate and truthful. So it's important for the youth to understand that that is not always the case. And the adults have to help children learn how to think, learn how to be critical. And parents can definitely play a role, but also professors and teachers at the school can also provide a role. So they can show children different ways to look at the same problem or the same issue. You know, if I were to narrow this down to Korea-Japan relations, this today could be a very thought-provoking, fun session. But I think that this could also be a difficult session precisely because we're talking about perception. Now, I am in my 40s, so people like myself and older people have this stagnated way of thinking. So our thinking is fixed pretty much. The reason we are hopeful for the future, maybe this is not the best way to put it, but their brains are soft. For the young people, their brains are malleable. You have that ability to think, and you're more open-minded. Your thinking is not fixed. This means that the youth need to be supported to be able to think freely and explore and be critical. And this is the same when it comes to Korea-Japan relations or other relations or bilateral relations. Maybe in Korea, you can look at Chinese behavior, Japanese behavior, and say, why is that? I don't understand why that is. But we want to delve deeper and try to explain why China is behaving in that way or why Japan is behaving in that way. The adults can show that or teach that to the youth. If you meet with people in their teens or in their 20s, they're not so closed-minded in their thinking. They have the ability to think and explore and try to get to the answer on their own. So again, I think that the adults should work on building these youth, their critical thinking skills.
Mr. Yamashita, from the world of influencers, what do you think about that question? Is there a role for the youth and a role for an older generation?
そうですね。いや、僕この話題に関しては王先生にもすごく聞いてみたいなと思っています。
Well, on this topic, in fact, I want to ask this to Dr. Wang Shungwian. So when you raise children, oftentimes parents use the contents to make the children calm down, be quiet. So AI, however, does have some risks. There might be some side effects, but along with the positive effects as well. So the youth or the teenagers and AI, and children and AI, how can we ensure that they can exist in harmony? So this is a question that I want to ask Dr. Wang.
Sir, please.
对，我觉得在数字世界在这种互联网的世界
Yes, we are living in a digital era, in the internet era, and it is true that there are many different voices and different opinions, and I think that's only natural that there is a diversity in the opinions that are out there, whether it's inaccurate media or wrong misrepresentations. Everybody is entitled to their opinion. So first of all, I think we have to be calm about that. Of course, there would be inaccurate information in that but for the youth, they will still get access to a lot of different kinds of information. Well, last year when I went to Hokkaido, as I mentioned before, I had the opportunity to visit Hokkaido University, and I bought a gift there, a souvenir to bring back home to my child. And Hokkaido, I brought these souvenirs that are local from Hokkaido. And I do the same thing when I travel to Korea. I try to buy something that is locally sourced, something that is local from that region to try to bring back to my child, and that will help them open up and see these different cultures of different countries. I think that our children are all very smart. They have the ability to think for themselves and think critically. And in perceiving other countries, I think that they have that basis. So the adults should really have to guide that well.
Thank you. I think we have also all reached a conclusion that the young generation are perfectly capable of getting into the right frame of mind. It actually may be the older generation that is an issue, and I think for that we turn to you, Dr. Bajan Shaf. I mean, I teach a group of graduate students, and they tell me that we talk about fake news and disinformation, and they tell me they can see disinformation and fake news, but their grandmothers, their grandparents can't distinguish fake news from real news, and so they are the older generation are the problem. Do you see a generational issue in this, the mutual understanding and how to realize the benefits of the digital world?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a generational gap. So that's something we need to address collectively, all levels, government, institutions, and even the local communities. So that's why we developed quite a good curriculum, technology-assisted the program for older persons. So this is the digital literacy for older persons. So it's certainly a tremendous pressure on them, but there's no choice for them to continue to learn and be on relatively on the same page with the younger generation, and also engage in a lot of communication with the younger generation and debate with younger generation. So that's the only way we could move forward.
And now maybe another question from the floor. Yes, I think we have a couple of questions in the back. Yes.
Thank you. 여러분 안녕하세요. 저는 성균관대학교.
Hello. I study political science at Sungkyunkwan University. My name is Chung Pek-seung. I have a question to Dr. Wang Zongyuan, so I'm going to speak in Chinese.
王仲远先生，我想
So Dr. Wang, you talked about AI as the possible facilitator of CJK trilateral relations. But for progress of AI, we need trust. However, AI algorithms are based on data that possibly could be biased. And if that is the case, wouldn't that just help to facilitate more bias in our society? Because you talked about before about the aspect of cultural diffusion and fake news and fake information and etc. So AI is collecting a lot of personal information as well. And if it does not process this correctly, then that could also be an impact on privacy. And I think many people here would agree. Well, AI could maybe diffuse only specific bits of cultural content, and in so doing skew people's biases or skew their thinking. So there could be some efforts to control AI to a certain extent. So do you think that we should slow down the development of AI because the current laws and institutions are not helpful and they're not seeing a lot of public participation, they're not very transparent, so perhaps maybe we need to balance this current breakneck speed of AI development in our current situation? We're now in the situation of fourth industrial revolution, and are there really more benefits, more pros and cons? Are we putting in the right supervisory controls in place? Because we're here discussing CJK cooperation, but many youth, especially when we talk about generative AI, we're engaging in exchange that is based on Gen AI. So in accepting and recepting other countries, can we believe AI? Yes. That's really excellent Chinese. Thank you very much for that response. With the development of AI, there have been many negative repercussions from that. And I don't think I have time enough to summarize those impacts here, but I think that this is an important case. And this is not something that is just a problem for the three countries, the CJK countries. This is a problem for the world. So that is why we all have to cooperate together, not just our three countries, but with broader countries to solve this issue of digital technology. Now, the issue of digital bias, of course, we all must recognize the fact that it exists. And much of the important parts of these LLMs is that they are built based on learning the values and decisions and the thinking processes of the people. And it's important for these machines to learn the universal values of humans. To be honest, I don't think that we are ready yet. Technology is developing very rapidly, but even at our institute in March, we had an international forum on AI and security dialogue to raise awareness about AI security, try to establish a red line of sorts to decrease the risks that AI could bring, because AI is developing at such a fast speed, and it's so fast that with AGI, so general purpose AGI, within 2 or 3 years, we'll be able to accomplish so much. I have studied AI for the past 10 years, and I think in about 4 or 5 years, maybe not even 4 years, this general purpose AI will be launched. Of course, I cannot state this with certainty, but this general purpose AI will be launched, and this is going to massively change the way that we do business. And I think that from the positive side, this will bring about progress, but there will also be some difficulties, like two sides of a coin, which is why the international community, especially our 3 countries, have to cooperate together to try to increase this level of AI safety. If we face this very rapid development of AI, although we are not fully prepared, then we might not be able to respond to this quickly. So we have to be objective, and we should not go into a frenzy over these kinds of developments. And every time there was a scientific or technological breakthrough, we know that there have been some downsides as well. There were revolutions. When electricity was invented, there were some risks, but it changed our industry. It was the same with internet. There were a lot of internet breaches, and there were many issues with risk and safety. But even now, internet has continued to provide many benefits, a lot of growth and development. Every time there was a new breakthrough in science and technology, I think that we have to be a little bit calm and stoic in the face of that, try to understand technology, and also allow technology to thrive within an accepted and controlled scope. And we have to allow for international governance to embrace it within an acceptable realm. And this is something that we are all facing together, so we have to think about this together. So simply put, electricity also have pros and cons. The internet also have pros and cons. But in the course of human history, these technologies could not be stopped. These are secular trends, so we have to expand the benefits and the pros.
You talk about a very important aspect, so I just wanted to quickly follow up. You talk about the regulations that are coming up very fast, and that Korea, Japan, and China must work together. Already in the EU, there are AI Act. There are movements to regulate AI, to put up guardrails. Why is it that Korea, Japan, and China need to speak up now? I mean, what would be the adverse effects for this region if we did not cooperate and participate in the formation of regulations of AI?
对，我觉得在 AI 安全。
I think that when it comes to AI safety and AI security, these are issues that really merit international attention. And CJK, countries must really engage in multifaceted cooperation. So scholars, AI researchers have to cooperate because they are the ones who are most knowledgeable about the technology. They understand the realistic risks and can analyze those risks and can prepare against them. The AI forum that I spoke of in March was a channel where we discuss these issues and we talk about launching a fund, and the fund would support the work of researchers on AI. Going forward, many people will continue to study AI safety and AI security, both from the point of view of technology but from other frames. There's also policy coordination would be very important. So that AI Safety Forum held in Beijing in March was also where we discussed how AI should develop into a way that is universally beneficial to everyone.
Other question in the back that we didn't get to? Someone that was right beside the question that was asked before? Would you like to ask a question? No? Was that one question? Okay, then we have another question here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xiaoqian Zhou. I'm the communication officer from ICLAI, local governments for sustainability. And I have a question for Mr. Gamble. Sorry for my pronunciation. So I would like to ask your suggestions or opinions of the collaboration of the local governments of the three countries using this digital transformation as the opportunity to achieve the sustainable goals. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, absolutely, as I mentioned, so the local communities, local governments, they have now in many countries, including China, Japan, Korea, have a lot of authorities, a lot of autonomies. So that's why the collaboration, supporting the collaboration at the city level, the local government level, is a strategy across UN and UNESCOP. So it's already on its own very big program and an aspect of our priorities when we work with member governments. So equally, we deal with central government and local government. So across all sustainable development goals, especially those are immediate, needs immediate attention, which is our collective response to the climate crisis, because on the ground, so the challenges we face on our environmental front does not have a common border. So it's cross-border, it's transboundary. So that's why the cooperation among the local governments, the key to advance the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals.
Thank you. I think we'll take maybe one more question from the floor, and actually we have two, but let's start from the middle.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I study at Ewha Women's University. I am also a student of one of the speakers on the stage. I'm very pleased to be here, and I have a question for Dr. Wang. I know that the leaders in China are placing a lot of emphasis on science and technological development, particularly AI development. In the future, many resources and funding will be provided to this research in AI development. What are your research prospects going forward for AI development, together in line with these policy initiatives and policy supports? And what kinds of AI research can you entertain across the three countries together? There are young people like myself studying abroad, many Chinese young people studying abroad. Is there any advice that you can provide to us? Thank you very much for that question. So first of all, last week we had an AI competition, or a contest, should I say, where we spoke about the historical development of AI beginning from 2003. And at first, AI was a little bit weak and soft, and then there came the era of LLMs, where AI became general purpose and explosively used. It basically means that AI has become much smarter, so it is able to solve many different problems. If we look at AlphaGo, as you know, it was able to beat Lee Sedol in the game of Go. And now it was not able to solve many different problems like autonomous driving, but now it can. In 2024, we've seen another level up of AI, and the world is looking to these developments. China, as well as many other countries, are also facing the same kind of phenomenon. AI is touching upon so many areas, so many sectors and industries, and facilitating growth and developments in all these different industries, and they are all impacted by AI. This is going to be a driving force of the fourth industrial revolution. So, I think that within this context, international collaboration is very important. When we hosted the AI competition, we mentioned this, that perhaps next year there could be a trilateral AI competition. Research on researchers of AI, not just national security or science technology, but they could also come together in a forum for dialogue as well. Japan and Korean scholars can work together with us, and maybe we can have some kind of AI exchange platform next year. And our academy will also reach out to young people like yourselves. We want to exchange with young scholars. We ourselves, our academy is quite young. Our Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence is offering many research initiatives and programs for the youth. And we, I think, can also offer opportunities to young researchers from Korea and Japan. And of course, not just to Chinese students studying abroad in countries like Korea and Japan, but when they come to China, the advice that I would like to provide is that we're seeing a lot of exchange among countries, and this is impacting us. And at our academy, I remember there was an intern from Korea, there were students from Japan. I remember there was a student who majored in computer engineering at SNU, and later this student became a professor. So I think that this people-to-people exchange has been ongoing for dozens of years. And this is having a positive impact on us all. And the CJK, 3 countries, will continue and have to continue to engage in consistent exchange. And I think that this is very helpful to our mutual development. This morning I heard something that was quite impressive, which is that there were so many of these young people sitting here today who will be determining the future of CJK cooperation in 10, 20, 30 years' time. So through more future cooperative projects, I hope that we can lay a robust foundation for friendship. So maybe in a decade or so, in a dozen years or so, these young participants can come back and engage with one another once again, and these young scientists can contribute more towards that.
It's worthy of applause. I think for someone who is actually worked in the global AI companies and internet companies, to be working in an NGO area to try to foster a more positive development of AI is something to be highly commended for. I think we shall see more of you as well, Dr. Wang, in the future. And sustainable cooperation, my students as well. I think we have one more question that we wanted to take, and then we'll maybe do a final round and wrap up.
Thank you very much. 여러분 안녕하세요.
Hello, I am from Soomyung Women's University. I am a graduate student, and my name is Lee Penhui, and I will be speaking in Chinese. Good afternoon. Mr. Yamashita, from 10 years ago, I've been a follower of yours, and I've been a long-time fan. I am studying or living in Korea right now. My husband is Korean. And I agree with the perspectives that have been shared so far, that you've shared so far, contents creation and sharing, and the fact that contents industry is less politicized. I think that's a good way for us to promote trilateral cooperation. I enjoy animation and games. But recently, we see that particularly in the international stage, the cultural contents export has become a very important tool. But it seems that on this export issue, there's been different perspectives. So in the process of creation and distribution of the different cultural contents, it has led to a lot of misinformation and misleading. We see that happening quite often. And so I'd like to ask Mr. Yamashita, you've been a successful producer of cultural contents. What is your perspective on this issue? Thank you for the question. I think it's a similar situation with food, because in this huge, big group of food, you have junk food as well. So it's not good for you, but it's tasty. But then there's also healthy food, which is not tasty, but good for you, healthy for you. So I think both the consumers and the producers of contents, I mean, the primary purpose of creating these contents is profitability, it seems. So this leads to creation of a lot of unhealthy contents. But the traditional flow of capitalism, individuals do not have the power to stop the negative flow. What kinds of information will be selected for my individual consumption would become more important in this case, under the current circumstances. But today, AI, through algorithms, shows you what you might enjoy. But individuals are able to make the choice on whether to consume it or not. And the digital literacy is very important. Developing digital literacy capacities would be very important seen from this perspective. But in this case also, your favorite influencers, the people that you are a fan of, it would be very important to have a critical mind in providing support to these influencers as fans also. So it will be very important to have these horizontal connections established with your favorite influencers also, and also form groups among the fans, among yourselves, and to be providing support to this kind of positive effort. So these individuals coming together to form groups and to engage in positive work together would be very important. And I am also participating in that as well. Thank you very much for being a follower for 10 years.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's a very important relationship that you have. Dr. Che, you talked about digital literacy. Could you add and maybe offer some advice about how to enhance your own digital literacy?
네. 사실은 지금 우리 야마시타
Listening to Mr. Yamashita, I thought that Mr. Yamashita is digital personified. So he plays the role of being that delivery vehicle. This ability to relay information is impressive, and the person who followed him for 10 years has had access to the information that he provides and must have thought that the information he provides is well worth it and is correct, so she has continued to follow him. Oh, I've heard a lot of good advice, but one of the things that has not been talked about is accountability or maybe responsibility. I teach students and I provide policy recommendations to the government. So what I do is I try to be very accountable to the things I say to my students. And I try to become a person who will always be responsible for her words. Likewise, we talk about exchange being very important among the three countries, and we all know that. Everyone knows that is very important. If we have to, I think, go deeper and think about and talk about why that is so important, especially when we think about our relations with China. When Korea-Japan relations, even though our relations might be poor, there is always that understanding that Koreans like Japan. We love traveling to Japan, and Japanese people like Korea, but we are worried about our relations with China. I think there is that basic level of mutual understanding with Korea and Japan, but we don't know if we have that with China. We don't know if Japan and China have that for one another. So when we think about these relations with other countries, to take a step further and think deeply, we have to first of all build more trust and more familiarity. But for Korea, Japan, Japan, China, China, Korea, we feel that maybe there is still a lack of that kind of trust that is sufficient. And to build that trust is where exchange comes in. And to facilitate the exchange is where you come in. In the 1998, back then with the joint communique, Korea-Japan joint communique, around that time there was so much private sector exchange. And then about 20 years has passed. That generation that did a lot of Korea-Japan exchange would be your mothers and your fathers. It is the older generation. They're the ones who helped you study abroad in Japan and helped you to forge these ties of friendship with other students of other countries. Now, you have been the beneficiaries of that. What should you do? You must ask yourselves, what can you do? What can you do to be accountable? Because that sense of accountability rests with the older generation, but it is also yours to have. Your participants like yourselves, we are all responsible to one another to build that exchange further going forward, and we have to be responsible for each of our deeds and our actions and the words that we say.
Thank you, Dr. Che. And that actually leads into our final question, which you actually answered, but I'll ask the same question of all of you. We have, as Dr. Che pointed out, a young generation who will be responsible for the mutual perception of each other in the future. Very short, because you only have about 3 minutes left. If you could give them one piece of advice about what they should do to better foster better relations, better perception between our three countries. Would you like to start? Whoever wants to start?
じゃあ、
Yes.
私はですね、本当にこう日中韓の明るい未来に
The Korea-China-Japan relations. Well, there are not that many influencers who are willing to really work for positive development in trilateral relations. So we really need to come together more. The size of the pie is quite small at the moment, and so it feels lonely at times. And so these influencers' work oftentimes are overlooked. We don't receive recognition for this effort. So like-minded influencers should come together more to interact more, and this requires a lot of support from the older generation as well. And I've actually direct personal experience on this, and so we have to try to find ways to identify like-minded people, influencers, and also discuss ways to cooperate together. There's been a lot of digital development, but we should also have offline and face-to-face interactions more as well.
To build strength through cooperation online and offline. Dr. Wang?
对，我也非常赞同，应该是线上加线下的结合，对于年轻。因为我们在线上虽然有非常方便的交流的方式，但确实
So I think that we can do it easily, obviously, online, but offline exchanges would be very important as well. And as Dr. Choi has said, the Japanese people like to travel to Korea and tour the country. When I traveled to Japan, I thought and felt that as well. And same when I come here. China is also a very beautiful country. We have many beautiful cultural heritage elements as well. So I hope that many more Korean youth will come and see China and perhaps see how Chinese people live. They can have more favorable impressions of China. I believe that our peoples are very kind and compassionate, and there needs to be more of these peer-to-peer exchanges, civilian exchanges, and that will lead to more trust and familiarity.
Dr. Bashanjov, I think you have the final word.
Okay, yeah, so China, Japan, Korea. But the Asia and the Pacific as a whole really expect a lot from China, Japan, Korea as a combined, very powerful pool of information and experience and knowledge and technology. So UNESCOP is more than happy to facilitate this collaboration between China, Japan, Korea, and the rest of Asia and the Pacific, providing our platforms, which is very neutral, politically neutral. United Nations has a strength of the convening power. So we're happy to provide our platforms. We're happy to connect with our networks and partners to make our collaboration and partnership even more impactful.
I think we've all laid down a lot of important homework for the future generation, but I think it's up to all of us to work together. We have, in the digital world, we have a whole new set of tools. We have many things to work with, but I think it is a matter of what we do with the tools that are available. And I think that if anything has come out of this talk, it has shown that it is possible to put together a positive future if we cooperate enough, and if we have the will, and if we are responsible enough. And I hope that is the case, and I hope that that allows us to truly put together a brighter future. So on that note, I would like to thank all our panelists and everyone here for participating in this wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Son, and the distinguished speakers for the very insightful session, and it was truly thought-provoking. With this, I'd like to announce the conclusion of the second session, but before we end, I'd like to ask the speakers and also Ambassador to remain in the stage for a while to take a group photo.